welcome to the Education, Environment, Sustainability meeting. Today is March 6, 2024. It's a little after 3 p.m. Can I have a roll call?
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Ms. Simon.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Present.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Mr. Shrine.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
There is a quorum.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No, Madam Chair, no one is signed in.
We have minutes from February 21st. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes without reading them?
So move.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
No matters referred from council, but we do have a discussion of water-related business attraction update with the Cleveland Water. There was a grant agreement. I guess we'll hear about that back. I don't know the date, but we have a Cleveland Alliance agreement and a grant from at least a year ago, and we're here to get an update. Who's going to speak to this initially?
Start. Paul Hurtig, Department of Development. First of all, I'm fine. We have not been settling our differences with our other partners with physical means. I just went to the doctor and had a minor medical, so everything's fine. So that out of the way. Let me just review and refresh here. We're here to give a report on some work that's being done under some money that was granted back in, I believe, late 2022. This is a portion of the county executives, the former county executives' share of the due to ARPA money. And it was important and still is important to really leverage and take advantage of the fact we have the fortunate situation of being right on the shores of a great lake, Lake Erie. There's several ways this is important, and the main report you will hear today focuses on just one of the features of that. But just, again, to set the stage, there's funding that's under contract with the Cleveland Water Alliance that covers a number of initiatives, including supporting innovation based on water. Part of that funding is passed through to Team NEO, and the part that's passed through to Team NEO is more specifically to be used to do some of their business attraction work, focusing on building relationships with companies that may see an advantage in locating here because of the proximity to the resource of Lake Erie. There was concern legitimately to make sure that the types of businesses spoken to, encouraged to come here, attracted, are the right businesses, that they'll be using our water resources in the right way with due regard for the ecological importance of Lake Erie. And that's always been part of the understanding here. But council felt this was so important that they asked for this review and progress report before the second part of the funding gets released to Team NEO. So we're basically here to give a report for oversight before that second part of funding goes to Team NEO to continue their work. So I hope I've kind of set the stage. Happy to answer any broad questions, and then Mindy McLaughlin's going to come up and give the more detailed report.
That's fine. Was sustainability invited to this meeting?
Yes, Valerie had a conflict,
I
and
see.
she was going to see if someone else could be available, but I'm not sure they had anyone available.
Okay, because they were integral to this grant agreement and drilling down on it. Okay, but go proceed, and if we need an update from them, I'll ask them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I will bring forward Mindy McLaughlin. Also, Bill Kaler is here. Also, E.B. Hoist of the Cleveland Water Alliance. But it's our intent that Mindy be the one to give the report today.
Good afternoon, County Council. Appreciate the opportunity to give you this update. Also wanted to say a big thanks to the Cleveland Water Alliance, our partner, EV, who is here. We are basically the contractor to the Water Alliance for the money that you gave to the Water Alliance. And if you saw, hopefully I see Councilwoman Simon, you see the deck. I'm sorry.
I'll take my promotion.
Apologize for that. You can kind of see the pre-read that I hope you had a chance to review, and this is the snapshot into our progress. So hoping just to speak briefly about the top lines of that, if you don't mind. So basically we see water intensive, which is how we're branding this initiative. It's different than water technology. So what the Water Alliance is doing with their test beds is really on the technology piece. And I will. Would you like me to share the slides, or is it okay if I talk to them? You've got them in
You
front of
might
you.
as well, is it ready to
I think so, if you want to.
do it?
Do I need to push a button?
Janine can, yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, for the viewers here who want to see it. We view water intensive as really a long-term play. So we view water as a feedstock that goes into a number of industries that Northeast Ohio can be competitive in. I'll get to that in a second. And that in terms of our ability to attract companies who need fresh water, which is essentially what we have to offer here, they are looking at the availability of water as in the context of a number of factors. So in that context, it really matters the site piece of that. We do have a couple of headwinds, as we discovered this year. We learned a ton in 2023 within the US, within Europe, and within Asia. We did a global look at this. We learned a ton about what the viability of our message is, and we learned a couple of things about that I wanted to share next. So I'll start with, if you refer to the key industries that we targeted. We were very prescriptive in looking at industries that we know use water as a feedstock, one, and two, have an industrial mix with Cuyahoga County, Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, that would make sense. We really didn't want to go after companies that just were in some far-off industry that didn't make sense. But what we think, in our professional opinion, makes sense would be companies that are within the EV battery supply chain. They need a lot of water. Metal fabrication and production, which is a traditional industry for us. Food processing, so you may think of like a Nestle and how much they use water in their process. Semiconductors, as we look to be able to supply the Intel fab that's eventually going to be built in central Ohio, we know that that's an important sector we can win on. And lastly, polymers and other materials. So that's what we were targeting from an industry perspective. And we targeted the western part of the US, so you think of the Colorado River and the western side of the United States tends to be the water-starved areas. We were looking at industrialized Europe, where we have a ton of inward investment already. And we looked at parts of Asia Pacific, who are all in these industries. And we looked at them from a couple of perspectives, but one, in targeting, we look not only their geography, so that would be to say that we weren't specifically targeting companies from Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, or China, where some of these sustainability issues are a bit more challenging. We were looking at companies who had part of either their company-driven perspective and ESG mandate, or even some countries have this, and also the manner in which they use water. So we're not looking at companies who are looking to take water out of our lake and maybe send it, ship it. It was about using it in a process. And that would mean then that there would be wastewater that would come out. And because we have an EPA, a good relationship with the EPA, when we were talking to these companies about, hey, would you like to invest in our part of the United States? Part of that conversation was, tell us about your process, how you use water, so that we can be able to have a expedited conversation with the Ohio EPA so you can understand, in fact, what kind of regulations and rules and permits you will need. We want to have that be very upfront for companies. All right, I gave a snapshot here. I won't go through all this, but we had a really robust attraction campaign in 2023, lots of travel, domestic, international, and with site selectors. We use the message of water as a collection of other utilities and as a feedstock with a lot of industries. And we found that we did have a number of conversations that I will skip to the next slide here to show you that we had over 1,300 pieces of outreach to companies, both domestically and internationally, where this topic, water-intensive industry attraction, was featured. We definitely can see that we would have had a better standing within the international front. On the USA front, I'll get to that in a second, but we had our message was not as attractive to companies, which was a bit shocking to us, but of course we're happy that we learned it because I think we'll be able to tweak some things there. So what we did learn is, even though we did more outreach in the US, Europe was actually the strongest market for us to be able to get results. And so we have a little under 30 active opportunities that we are nurturing in some way, shape, or form to be able to see what we can do to bring them to look at sites, make a commitment, and something in that nature. And then the next thing, I know this is a bit of a word chart here, but the things I wanted to share that I learned that I think would be interesting to the council here would be some of the perspectives that we heard, which were a little bit shocking, I think, because we think our lake is the best thing ever and the water we have is great and everybody should love it. But certainly in the US, our intelligence came back that the southern and southwestern states that are typically the ones that are the water starved, where, you know, they have droughts and they have all these other problems, actually, when we talked to the companies, when we did the outreach, did not express a particular concern about the scarcity of water. And that seems contrary to everything we've seen and read and all of the headlines. But ultimately, the narrative that we have taken back is, if you are a company that makes semiconductors in Arizona, for example, you know that water is a challenge, but you have been assured by the state and community that they are going to do something about it. And it comes in a couple of different ways. I think this is just instructive for us to know. It's one, Arizona, Colorado, other states are telling their industry that they're going to be stopping stemming the flow of water, fresh water, to their agricultural entities to be able to support further industry. So they're going to change who gets the water. And two, they're looking at different ways to recycle it, to use less water in their process, just basically finding ways of innovation to use less. I think that was a surprising thing for us to know, because we put all this energy and made so many outreaches and ultimately sort of had like a really kind of empty response come back, like, well, you know, we don't need to move out of Arizona. We don't need to move out of Southern California. We don't need to move out of Colorado, because it's challenging, but it's going to work out. That was news to me. Maybe that's news to you. Whereas the situation is a bit different in Europe. Sustainability is the number one thing, especially in, I would say, in industrialized northern, western, central Europe. They have to do ESG-related measures to meet their own company requirements and also regulations by the European Union and sometimes their own individual countries. So the idea of being a good steward of water is systemic in their culture. You could see the way a European person recycles. It's an amazing thing. But on an industry level, there's not a question that they're going to be a good steward of the water, because, of course, at home they would have no choice but to be a good steward of the water. So we have a certain amount of faith that when they come to the U.S., their stance will not be different. And, of course, our Environmental Protection Agency regulations would require that, of course, they would do the same, as well as anything that we might do once we got dug a little deeper into their industry process. The other kind of interesting thing is that, competitively speaking, the southern states, which is sort of, if you think of Georgia, Texas even, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Kentucky, tend to be a bit more attractive to companies on this front. And it's not because they have sustainable energy that can be used, although that is a key factor. European companies want solar, hydro, and wind. They want 100% renewable energy to be able to use, which is a bit of a challenge for us. But they also sort of view the South as being, in some ways, a bit more competitive than us right now for industrial projects, especially in the sectors that I showed you. So these are headwinds that we look to sort of go past, but certainly we think that we have a way to go. So the main thing I would share with you is a kind of a tail end here is that we had, I think, for our first year doing this, for 4 quarters of work, a strong showing overall. Although the U.S. was a bit disappointing in the numbers, we learned something from that. We do think, as I said at the beginning, this is a long-term play. We think more than a couple of years is probably what it's going to take to make the marketing change, the perception of Cleveland, Lake Erie, Cuyahoga County be something that really sticks in the mind of our investors. There's a couple of things we're working on with members of the county government, hopefully you know about. One of them is sites in Cuyahoga County that actually have the ability to give a company at least 2 million gallons of water per day. Ideally, that is about 20 million gallons, but we don't have that many sites that are that big. So we are working with your engineering group and your economic development team here on finding tracts of land that are at least 30 acres contiguous and can have a excess water capacity of 2 million gallons a day. We probably have something less than 5 of those in the county at the moment that are available. So the progress that we have working together as a team to be able to find more sites, put more sites together, and essentially find more opportunities that we can shop is going to help make our message stronger in 2024. And I will stop there, I guess, to see if there are any questions for me.
Good, thank you. Questions, I'm sure there are. I do. I'll start. So the initial grant amount was 1.4 million, do you remember?
I think that was what the Water Alliance was given, but our number is 350,000. That was our portion of.
Got it.
My total about that. So it was split over 2 years. So in calendar year 2023, the Water Alliance gave us $175,000 for the first year. We would need your blessing, permission to be able to get the second half of that to continue our progress for 2024. But that is out of the total that you would have gifted or granted to the.
So the
Cleveland.
grant went to the Cleveland Water Alliance.
Correct.
I have the agreement, 1.4, and out of that, you,
We had a subset of
NEO,
that.
would get 350, and you're halfway
Yes.
through. And I think Councilman Trina has questions, and I have some questions, but go ahead. No, go ahead. I just a matter of practicality.
guess,
Go ahead.
The practical side of me says, where do they think that the crops are going to come from that there's taking the water away from? I mean, they like to eat, I assume.
You mean Arizona?
I'm not sure
Talking
they've
about the
been
It
West?
just seems like the people on the West Coast to say, oh, we're just going to divert the water from ag and we're going to move it
I
over
can
here.
answer that. They don't believe in climate change truly and think that they
California.
keep pushing it, they just push it, and they don't acknowledge that there won't be water in that river, and there's not. That's what it is. It's a mind F to me.
I'm not sure the farmers have been informed. I think this is what we are hearing from the state government, from companies there saying, this is what we've been told is going to happen. So perhaps there'll be a scuttlebutt if and when they get to that point. But yeah, it's doesn't make sense, right? When we kind of look at their picture and look at our picture,
So
why?
one of my favorite, Madam Chair, one of my favorite visits when I hang out with my family in the southwestern corridor of this country is going to the Hoover Dam. I think that's a miraculous, man-made kind of treasure. And the water there is lower than ever before. I mean, that's the Colorado River, the most substantive form of water in the western half of this country. I just think these people are not being realistic at all, to underscore what Jack is saying.
Well, it's just, ag historically has been one of the top crops, top things, top producers, top export, other than aerospace, out of California. And how do you not acknowledge that you need water for ag? I guess I mean,
Because we get all
that's-
our vegetables from South America now.
Well, we're getting an awful lot of vegetables from Mexico and South America. There's no question about
I
that.
suppose that's
Smoking
a,
mirrors. No, it's smoking mirrors. It's like, it's
That's
the leaders.
California
it's-
government's making that decision.
No, it's Arizona and it's Texas and.
should ask their government what they
Colo-
think about it, because I wonder if they would be candid with you about.
No, it's just the way to keep their businesses happy, and it's smoke and mirrors. But anyways, Colorado River's dried up, Las Vegas is using all the water in a desert. It's not sustainable. So this is a long game.
Sorry to say, there's a couple other factors. I mean, we think if we wanted to get companies from the western side of the U.S., for example, to move over here, that's a little bit harder, not just because we have water and they don't in practicality, but the overall embedded costs of some of these companies, TSMC and others who are making semiconductor plants, they can't just move that stuff easily. And so setting up a whole new operation, it's millions of dollars, there's inflation, so that's why in the end it has to be a long-term play for us. And it may be that we have more success with foreign direct investment from Europe, where they're a bit more desperate because their energy prices are crazy high and they need fresh water. Their rivers and lakes, if you've been over, are also low. And so for them, the problem is a bit more real today than our neighboring US states, which is crazy to imagine, but that is what we found out in 2023. Yeah.
That's interesting. And not really surprising.
Not really. Probably, if you look at the politics of things, I suppose not.
That's right. So the question I have, when we're looking at the chip production in the mid-Ohio, that's being, I wondered about that. Are we looking at a spin-off company close to the lake to be able to, how do you get the water?
Yeah,
moved?
well, so the chip company in Central Ohio will need its own selection of water. They need more than $300 million gallons, I think, say the crazy number. That water will not come out of our lake. That's a Central Ohio problem. We're not really involved in that. What I was sort of thinking about is that we know today there's probably 80 or so suppliers around Ohio who currently supply Intel plants all over the world. That number will probably grow with all sorts of pieces and parts and components that are going to supply this fab. And so some of those pieces and parts will be water intensive because of the nature of their component. Do I know exactly what they are? I mean, that's not at the moment. That particular chip company is not sharing the secret sauce with us, but we do think that's an opportunity from a supplier perspective from companies who would be using the water to make their component. The component makes, call it a widget, and then the widget shipped to Central Ohio for production in some way. So we are not looking to, we love our neighbors across the state, but we are not looking to share our water with them in a direct way.
No, I appreciate that, so go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that, because when you talk about widgets, I'm a little familiar with widgets.
Yeah, you are.
But the water consumption is not consumed. It is used as a lubricant to make that widget. And that's what they're buying from Swagelok, from Lubrisol, from people like that, to make, there's a city underneath the chip.
Right.
There's an entire city that's making that. And their job is to pipe the water, but the water is not coming from the Lubrisol application. It's not coming from Swagelok. That lubricant, that water is a water glycose that's actually lubricating the materials. It's getting cut to reduce the heat, but it doesn't. It's not being consumed like you're talking about these other things.
Right. Chips are kind of a different animal, right, when it comes to that. Some of these other
You've got the chip in the
industries
city
we're
that
talking
makes the
about.
chips below it, right?
Right. So the main industries besides the one you just described, which you're 100% right about, are whether it's food processing, cheese is big here, dairy. Those are all kind of companies who will need water. Metals, polymers, they're all still going to need it in some way for their process. So water is used in a couple different ways, obviously, but we do think that probably the main one overall will be in the process, and then responsible use of it as wastewater when it's done.
Yeah, on your slide, when you're talking about food processing.
Yes.
That's going to consume water. When you're talking about metal production, it's going to use water in its process, but it's not going to consume the water.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so
Different scenarios depending
completely
on
different
the
scenarios.
depending on the
Right.
industry. Yes.
Now, the battery, I believe the EV actually consumes water.
Yes, in the cell making process. Yes.
It consumes a lot of water in the cell-making process. So that is one of the highest consumers of water, is the electric vehicle battery production.
Yeah, and that's why it's probably, if I think of all of these, I mean, they're probably equally good opportunities for us, but I think we have, because the newest technologies are kind of EV and semiconductors, those are probably the ones that we're going to have the better shot at, should we have, good sites and some other attributes that are going to be attractive to companies going forward.
Well, I'll disagree with you. I'd like to hope the metal production and fabrication remains as a piece. It's our single largest GDP in Northeastern Ohio. It's twice the size of medical, so
Right.
I would like to hope we don't erode that.
Well, it's on this list because we're looking at them. They're like the children. We all love them the same, right? So,
We all love the children the same. Huh?
There was a list, I believe, we had about 900, is that, I have notes from when we did this.
the original, yeah, so that,
Whittled it down because we wanted to make sure the companies were responsible and viable.
yeah, so a couple things on that. We kind of know target lists are living things, but they're sometimes dated. So from a few years ago, I think that was even circa 2020 maybe, we had a list of 900 targets that had been worked through. We started with that list, but did add significantly to it. So this universe that we have listed here in terms of the amount of outreach contains some of those 900, but is also contains brand new companies that we added, all attraction, meaning they're not in Ohio right now. And so the list has evolved, I guess would be my point.
And so, go ahead, and then
I guess I would like to suggest you redo the slide with the 5 components on it to the point where it talks about semiconductors support as opposed to, I don't think we're going to, that ship has already sailed. Columbus has already got the semiconductor production factory, and we don't have the ability to amass that kind of land. So
Okay, that's fair.
we're going to support, unless you know of a land piece that's we're going to float some,
I would ask that we not do that because we are working on some very sizable site opportunities in Northeast Ohio, and our water is a huge strategic.
okay, so we have the ability to amass the kind of footprint that
We're working on it.
oh, well, okay.
Is
then
this
I'll-
in
It's called
Cuyahoga, or you
Citus-
said Northeast Ohio?
It is close enough to Cuyahoga County to make Cuyahoga County very relevant. to the
Nice
story.
and correct.
Okay.
Like,
It's
I
site
thought-
assembly, and you got to be creative sometimes on that site
I
assembly.
hope it's redeveloped sites, but.
Okay, I will, I'll avoid, because the other one I was going to make was the size of a EV battery plant. If you look at what Tesla's doing with that, it's the biggest single factory in the entire United States. I just had a hard time believing we could amass
Well, I think-
those big chunks of land. But if we can,
Yeah,
go get them.
it's the OEMs and it's the components. We are bullish that we can talk to both. So
Yeah.
we're,
Okay.
that's,
Hey,
All right.
a
not
job
gonna
is a
limit
job, in my
ourselves,
opinion.
but thinking
Yeah.
too small,
Dream
or
big.
thinking
Dream
too big, so.
Dream big. So here's what I had written down. Team Neo's job was in the first half of this, marketing campaign, hire staff, be in industry, I guess advertise, and I can't read my travel. So how, can you tell me us specifically how this money was used in these different categories?
Yes, so if I were to, I could give you the visual, I don't know if I still have the deck, maybe not. Nope. If we look at, keep going, this one, the activity, this is sort of how we segmented it, but essentially the marketing would be the outreach, right? So when we're making the outreach, which was the staff would be me, plus a number of our international consultants and domestic consultants who are helping us with finding these companies, getting the contact information, and assisting with setting appointments. The marketing would go through the actual outreach itself. I'm calling from Team Neo, talking about water-intensive opportunities in Cuyahoga County. We have a lot of fresh water, we have sites, we have talent, all the different attributes. And so we think of that as marketing. We didn't put billboards up, for example, but we did have a one-pager, a brochure, a couple of other things that were sent as marketing pieces. We had a team, which is primarily me at my role at Team Neo, a handful of other folks who were taking this message on their travels and journeys across the US primarily. I primarily do the international. Let's see, what were the last 2 points you had? I'm sorry, I forgot.
So marketing campaign,
Marketing.
hiring staff, did you hire?
We did not hire extra staff for this. I think this was, in terms of the Water Alliance contract to us, they appointed us to be the contractor to that, and I was the staff person.
Okay, so you're the staff.
I am the
you're
staff,
the
yes.
staff, okay. Got it. Okay, great. So what would be the next idea for the next half of the allocation of the 350?
Yeah, so
Same?
we have a very robust schedule of outgoing attraction activity coming up. Actually, on Saturday, I'm out to Europe for a 2-week attraction mission myself, so I'll be able to road test this message again with a whole new set of clients in countries that we have faith in terms of their commitment to sustainability because they believe in it and they live in it. And then we'll be doing the same thing domestically in aerospace, in tech, in semiconductors and polymers, food. We're all hitting all of these overall sectors throughout this calendar year in much of the same way we did in '23 in terms of volume, but looking to tweak the message a little bit tighter to talk about the way that we've got talent initiatives and site initiatives and a handful of other things that are going to be really important for companies to be looking in this area.
So what are you targeting in Europe, Germany, or like what?
Yeah, so Germany would be is our biggest market by far, but we also think there's opportunity in Italy, specifically Northern Italy, which is pretty industrialized. Also the Netherlands, Benelux. I was in the UK 2 weeks ago talking about this in the Greater London area, Ireland even, a little bit in France, and I would say that's probably the markets that are going to have the best resonation with this message.
Okay, thank you. Fantastic. Any questions about this going forward with the second half, Jack, Sharon?
Sure, Madam Chairman. So if we're going to Europe and going after those countries, I can only assume that they are within this 5-unit sector that we're looking at also?
Yes.
So we're trying to keep our message tight?
Yep.
Okay, and do you have a preference as to which one of these you think is actually looking to transplant? Because semiconductor has got to be looking for that big land piece, and if Bill's got that, great. Battery, I would think, is another big land mass piece. So are you looking at any of these particular ones as far as prioritizing these 5 sectors?
Yeah, this target list here, the sectors here being described are really the sectors that we target in all the time. So in terms of foreign direct investment, so yes, I would be looking in some subset of one of these industries. I would say in Europe, though, it's definitely going to be on the manufacturing side. Surprisingly, food processing is a little less the focus there, even though you could argue that they make a lot of food that we eat, but for sure, I think the metal piece, the polymer piece are going to be the strongest because those are, as you know, traditional industries that we have a lot of connectivity with. And then on top of that, the battery components and the semiconductor components.
And the European counterpart to you, aren't they going to be fighting like heck to keep these pieces? Or is it they come to the point where they just can't keep them because they don't have the water to support them?
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, they're in Europe specifically, they do not have economic developers as a industry the way that the United States does. So I don't know that there's essentially an equivalent to me who's from their countries who are coming here hunting our businesses. They are a little bit more reactionary, and I think because they don't have often an incentive to keep a company or any sort of assistance to give, they sort of let companies go. But essentially, we're not trying to get European companies to move completely out of Europe. We're asking them to open up a U.S. subsidiary. So in some ways, it strengthens their home base of a business if they open a facility in the U.S. We like that because that employs our people, supports our tax base, helps our industries grow. But essentially for them, it's their internationalization program is what keeps them alive, even if in their home country they are starved of cheap power, fresh water, et cetera.
No, you got to take the mic, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Bill was asking me to share some insights on a previous European trip. Yeah, Europeans, and I'm talking about the countries that I mentioned, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, the UK, Ireland, Italy, France, they are in some ways super desperate to put a landing strip somewhere else other than their home country. They would love to be in the US tomorrow, but what keeps them from coming here in droves is that it's viewed as difficult, scary, and expensive to open something in the US. Regulation-wise, we have different employment. It's at-will employment, it's not contract employment. The European Union gives all sorts of grants to industries and companies. So a lot of things that make Europeans comfortable are going to be different here. That takes a bit of hand-holding, that takes a lot of conversations and nuance and all of that. So we are just learning that the demand for being in the US and our part of the US is the demand is there. It's how do we get them to a comfort level where they're willing to put their precious dollars invested in our community? And that's what we are constantly on the hunt for.
They're precious euros.
I'm sorry, yes,
They're
precious euros.
Yeah.
Yes, that's another issue. They don't love their currency against the dollar today, but.
The other group that they have some concerns about are Sonny and my other profession. They do not care for all the lawyers we have in the United States. I
Yeah,
know.
service providers,
Service
not a
providers, they're
thing they
very-
love. They don't
yeah,
love
sorry.
having to have a lawyer and a banker and an accountant and an architect and whoever. They like to do handshakes and know people and have stuff for free. Tech transfer is free largely over there. Not so the case here. So, but we still believe that this is a viable deal. And, look, things in the U.S. change on a dime every once in a while. We don't know what's going to happen. If we learned anything from the pandemic, we know we can't plan so far in the future. So we're bullish that we're going to be able to see what happens in this calendar year. We're going to be able to learn more and get some more opportunities for growth.
And don't discount that food processing because Europe does a lot of food processing right here in Cleveland.
Yes, they sure
with
do.
The whole Nabisco and how it's headquartered over there, and the more we can bring, we just assume they bring all that stuff here.
Absolutely.
Oh, that was great. Can I hear from Evie from the Cleveland Water Alliance about what's been going on there? or someone.
I didn't ask you to prepare a comprehensive report.
I'm not
sure
asking
she'd
for that.
Give you a
Just-
few words, but
Yeah, I
if
would like
you
to
want a longer
hear-
report, she'll have to come back.
You can shoot from the hip. This isn't
to see all
the
of you.
Supreme Court here, so don't.
Okay. Great. Well, we have been very busy over this last year. We actually have,
She needs to identify herself.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
My name is E.B. Holst, and I am the Director of Clusters and Innovation at the Cleveland Water Alliance. And one of my roles is actually expanding our test bed activity to host water innovation technology companies. One of the big things that we've been working on over this last year is actually detection of lead service lines without breaking ground. We've been working with the Cleveland Water Department and a test bed that we've worked with them to establish in Parma Heights around being able to detect lead service lines without breaking ground. So this is a huge issue across the United States, certainly here in Cleveland, of having lead service lines that go from water mains to homes and buildings. And these lead service lines have some federal regulations coming down about requirements for doing inventory and replacing them over the next couple of years. And today, the only way to identify a lead service line is to dig down and look at it. That runs, according to Cleveland Water, that can run about $1,800 just to dig down and look at something. And Cleveland Water has something like 120,000 estimated lead service lines in the total inventory here in Greater Cleveland. And so it's a really big deal to be able to find solutions that are going to be able to mitigate some of that cost. One of the things that we did on this specific challenge was to actually do our second Open Innovation Challenge. So we put out calls across the country, across the world, for innovators who could come up with ways to do this, to detect these service lines. And we ended up actually identifying 3 top winners, and we will be hosting some of these innovators here at the test bed with Cleveland Water over the next couple of months. So it's pretty exciting, slow evolution. We're working with them to also do some prototyping of these technologies and evolving them in partnership with 6 different other utilities that have come in along with Battelle to really pay attention to what we're doing here. That's one aspect of what we've been doing, but we also had one of our largest field seasons of innovators coming in here to Cuyahoga County to make use of our test beds. I think we've hosted to date somewhere around 60 innovators, and we have 2 companies that are actively looking for manufacturing partners to set up shop and manufacture here in Cleveland, in Ohio. Having a connection directly to manufacturers that can respond to these opportunities is a little bit of a challenge. So we're working on kind of setting up some processes across regional organizations to be able to get, here's what the innovator is looking for. Maybe it's flexible electronics or it's a chemical type of treatment. How do we find a manufacturer here that can say, yes, I would love to work with you to manufacture your product right here in this region? So we have a little bit of work to go on that, but we're making some really great progress, and I'll pause there and see if you have some questions.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Any questions, Councilwoman Conlon?
Through the chair to Ms. E.B. Host.
Yes.
Just was wondering, how do you connect, or do you connect with the organizations that work on lead initiatives? This is the first time that I've ever heard of these lead service lines, so.
So this is a little bit different than some of the initiatives you would hear about, like with regard to lead paint. The lead service lines are very specific to the water industry and drinking water utilities in particular. This is something that's being kind of monitored across the United States at the national level, like US EPA There's a whole range of different industry associations like the American Water Works Association. And at the federal level, this is where we're seeing some of the mandates to swap these out. One of the things that instigated this activity is Flint, Michigan. So if you remember what happened in Flint, Michigan, is there was actually a changeover of the chemistry being used to treat the water. And that chemistry started to erode the pipes, the actual lead pipes. So you started getting lead into the drinking water of the residents of Flint, Michigan. And, you know, that really put a spotlight on it. But the use of lead in, you know, service lines as well as plumbing in our homes has been around for decades. It's just that at this point in time, it's, you know, it's got a clear health impact. And so there's really been an escalation of this issue and more regulations coming down the pike.
Yeah, because it's all connected. Back when it became a big noticeable thing of the lead and how it's impacting the children. City of Cleveland, they got a big grant to
Yes.
fight. I sat down with pediatrician, lead doctor, and she was just saying, she was trying to inform me of all the different ways that lead could come into the household. So,
And Cleveland Water's been really proactive about this. I mean, and again, they're like our top partner on trying to get this solved. So because of our work together on this, we have within the water industry a big spotlight here on Cleveland, on our work here. And so, you know, the three innovators that we actually identified out of this last challenge in 2023 are getting contacted by, you know, utilities across the country and by these various water associations, as well as the OEPA and Battelle.
thank you.
So,
Okay, anything else? Oh, Sharon, Councilman?
Well, you've teased us.
that's the best part.
Of course, of course. Unless it's proprietary, can you give us a hint as to how? Because this is, everybody here is worried about the pipes that are underground. They're bringing the water to this building, the drinking water, wherever they're bringing it throughout the whole system. Are these three innovators, is their concepts, are they proprietary or are they confidential at this moment in time?
They are, I can give you like a slight tease. And before I even do that, I want to reassure you.
We'll sign an NDA. We'll sign.
Okay. You know, we have had lead pipes for a very long time, and the chemicals that are used in water treatment actually add to a coating of those lead pipes. So, you know, we're not in imminent danger, but there are, you know, there are things that can change, just like what happened with Flint. And this is very much a kind of prophylactic measure of let's get these out so we don't have to worry about that type of change that may need to occur for whatever reasons, if chemistries need to change and so forth. So I would say to me, one of the most exciting approaches about how one of these companies is looking to detect lead service lines without breaking ground is actually using sound waves. So basically being able to differentiate using AI, being able to differentiate the sound of different types of pipe material. And so we have in general lead lines. We also have in our service lines, we have galvanized steel and copper. And so it's a whole mix, a hodgepodge. So being able to differentiate what the materials are is really kind of the key to solving this. You're welcome. Oh, and I do, Sonny, I wanted to mention too, you expressed a specific interest in microplastics when we spoke last year. And we actually have two initiatives that we're kind of jumping into on microplastics. One of them, we were talking with the county, specifically again with the Sustainability Office, but there's an initiative that is spinning out of Case, Western Reserve University, that's looking at microplastics and capturing microplastics from within the home. And so we're pretty excited about that. And another one is actually a research initiative. So putting in for some grants around that, we'll be excited to report
Yeah,
on.
fantastic. I was going to ask you, so you said capturing the microplastics in the home? Is that what you said?
It's proprietary, so I can't say more, but it is a home-based solution.
Before it gets to.
Before it even
the-
gets
into the
water.
waterway.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So we're going to have you come back.
Okay, great.
When do you think would be good? 6 months?
Probably 6 months. We have quite a bit of travel coming up too, like my friends at Team Neo, so.
Okay. Maybe we'll have Mindy come back too after your European tour.
Great.
Any questions? Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Through the chair, are there any regulations, you may have mentioned that are coming from the federal level for new construction in terms of the lead service lines?
So there already were in place.
Okay, there.
Any new construction, there's no use of lead in those service lines. And that's been the case for quite a while.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so there's nothing in front of us. There's no action to be taken, council committee. So it was just more an update and really interesting update. I appreciate that. So, we're going to assume that that 175 will be paid out to Team Neo.
To the chair, Paul Hertig, hearing the tenor of the discussion today, we will proceed to authorize that release.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming in. We
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having us. Thank you.
Thank you. You be Bill, Mindy.